All right, welcome back to Mystery Machines. I'm Elio,
And I'm Eloy.
and the source material we are digging into today is, well, it's pretty wild. We're looking at Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi, and it promises nothing less than a shortcut to evolution.
A million-year shortcut, to be exact, which, immediately sets my skeptic sense tingling. We're talking about a practice called Kriya Yoga, an ancient science, or maybe the most elaborate myth ever constructed. Let's find out.
Okay, so let's just put this central claim right on the table, because it is an absolute bombshell. The source says it right here. Just 30 seconds of this specific technique is supposed to equal 1 full year of natural human evolution. No apologies, no footnotes. That's the premise.
And there it is, 1,000,000 years of progress crunched into a single human lifetime? Come on. To me, that sounds less like profound ancient wisdom and more like the original spiritual clickbait. I mean, how could you possibly even begin to verify a claim like that? You can't. It's unfalsifiable by design.
I hear you, I do. But what's so fascinating is the language they use. The texts don't frame this as some magic trick you just have to believe in. They call it a psychophysiological method. It sounds technical. So what if, just for the sake of this explainer, we suspend our disbelief? What if we treat this not as scripture, but as a kind of technical manual for a mystery machine? Let's just try to understand the mechanics they're proposing.
A technical manual. Okay, I can work with that. So if this thing is a machine, every machine needs a power source. What's the fuel? What makes this thing run?
Exactly the right question. So let's get into the core concept, the power source they claim this entire system operates on.
It's called prana. The texts define it as the fundamental life force, the energy that animates us. Now, the idea is that in a normal person, pretty much all of this energy is on autopilot. It's totally consumed by basic biological jobs, like keeping your heart pumping. The whole goal of Kriya is to consciously take the wheel and redirect that energy away from those automatic processes, freeing it up for, well, higher activities.
And that brings us to breathing. The texts describe our normal automatic breathing as a kind of tug-of-war that keeps our consciousness tied down to the body and its senses. Precisely, Kriya breathing, on the other hand, is described as a deliberate act designed to untie that cord. So it's not about getting more air, it's about liberating the underlying energy, the prana, from its day job.
Okay, so let's look at the claimed results. The first 2 points, decarbonizing blood and recharging it with oxygen. That sounds a lot like what happens with any deep, controlled breathing. That's just standard physiology. But this third point, atoms of extra oxygen are transmuted into life current. What does that even mean? Is that just a poetic way of saying it gives you more energy? Or are they claiming an actual alchemical process is happening inside us? The manual gets a bit vague right there.
And this is where we get to the engine room. This is the core mechanism of the entire machine, and it's all centered on the spine. It's about how that life current is actually put to work.
The central technique has you mentally directing this liberated life energy to revolve up and down the spine, like a circuit, passing through these 6 centers, which just so happen to correspond to major nerve plexuses. It's really fascinating. The texts map these 6 centers to the 12 signs of the zodiac, calling the spine the symbolic cosmic man. The whole idea is that a single journey up and down this inner cosmos, that 30-second revolution, is what supposedly equals 1 year of evolution.
And this manual comes with a very serious warning label. It says the average human body is like a 50-watt lamp, and that doing this practice too much could generate 1 billion watts of power. The implication is crystal clear. You could blow a fuse. Permanently. This isn't being sold as a casual self-help trick.
So, okay, let's bring this down from the cosmic and esoteric to something really practical. We've talked about the high-level theory, but the source texts also give us some entry-level techniques. They basically suggest we can run a little experiment on ourselves, right now.
Yeah, beyond the massive claims of speeding up evolution, the texts also promise more immediate, tangible benefits. Things like better focus, less stress, improved health. So the system has a kind of low-stakes entry point for us to try.
This is a foundational technique called Hamsa Sadhana. Let's actually try it for just a moment. Wherever you are, just sit comfortably. Don't try to change your breath at all, just notice it. The texts say to listen for the subtle sound the air makes as it comes in, a hum sound, and the sound as it goes out, sa. Let's just observe for a few seconds. Hum on the inhale, sa on the exhale.
Okay, so that's it? Just listening to your breath? That seems incredibly simple. I mean, almost too simple after everything we've just discussed.
And that's the point, isn't it? This ridiculously simple act of observation is presented as the master key. It's the thing that unlocks the door to the whole engine room we were talking about.
Which brings us right back to the central problem. We've looked at the blueprints of this mystery machine. We've seen its grand promise and its surprisingly simple starting point. But how do we ultimately file this away? What are we supposed to make of all this? When you boil it all down, you're left with two completely opposing ways to see it. On one hand, this could just be a highly sophisticated placebo, a set of breathing exercises wrapped in mystical language that makes you feel good. Or it's exactly what it claims to be, an ancient, verifiable science of life force. Not metaphor, but physics, a technology for interacting directly with consciousness itself.
And the texts totally anticipate this dilemma. This quote basically says that your intellect, on its own, can't prove or disprove it. The system argues that the only valid laboratory for testing these claims is your own consciousness. It presents itself as a technique for inquiry, not just a set of beliefs.
Which leaves us with a really provocative final question. I have to admit, the internal logic of the system is compelling, even if the claims are absolutely extraordinary. My skepticism is supposed to be a shield that protects me from delusion. But what if, in this one case, it's the very cage I need to get out of?
And in the end, the texts don't ask for your belief. They just present a hypothesis and an experimental method. The only proof offered is in the practice.
The texts don't ask for your belief. They just propose an experiment. And the only laboratory is your own consciousness. The only real question is, are you willing to be the scientist? If you are, then I guess there's only one thing left to say. Welcome to the global initiation.